We have covered outdoor classics, heritage classics, and Stadium Series NHL hockey games. They are those special event, regular season games where they play the games outdoors in all the weather elements in a very large NFL or Major League Baseball stadium facility. The NBA has not done this. So just how and why did a game get rained out in 1986? Hi, I'm Chris May, host of This Day in Weather History, a podcast from the Weather Network in Canada. On January 6th of 1986, a scheduled game between the Seattle SuperSonics and the Phoenix Suns made history as the first ever rainout for the National Basketball Association. This day in weather history. The Seattle SuperSonics were a staple of the Northwest Pacific sports scene, but winters in Seattle can be rough. Like Vancouver to the north, it can be rain-soaked for much of that season. This would not normally be an issue because basketball is played in pro sports arenas. The Seattle NBA SuperSonics first competed in their home, the Coliseum, in 1966. Ultimately, it was a big reason why they left Seattle for Oklahoma City, so that may tell you all you may need to know already. It featured a poorly constructed roof, to say the least, that had a history of allowing rain to drip down and wet the floor during storms. Basketball courts are slick anyway when they get wet, as they're polished for that glowing shine you see on television. It's why any drop or bead of sweat is immediately toweled up by court crew during games. Back in 1972, NBA super scorer Spencer Haywood slipped on a rain puddle in the Coliseum during a game and injured his knee. He slipped on a rain puddle, in an indoor arena. He successfully sued Seattle for their crummy arena and the NBA for allowing this to continue. The team could see that this was not going to get any better anytime soon, so they moved to the very vacuous and emotionless Seattle Kingdome, then home of the Major League Baseball Seattle Mariners, in 1980. They were there for 6 years before the city somehow lured them back to the Coliseum in 86. Apparently a big mistake for the Sonics. For anyone who has ever watched NBA basketball in a baseball or football stadium as a temporary home, it's less than optimal an experience for all. So here we are. It's January 6th, 1986. The city had just likely assured them that all was well and we need our tenant back. They were set to play the Phoenix Suns. The game was already delayed almost 10 minutes while the court crew I told you about a moment ago were scrambling around toweling the leaky drips as fast as they were falling. It had to have been a comical scene by this point. It was early in the game, only just started the second quarter, and the roof just kept on leaking. Sonics coach at the time, Bernie Bickerstaff, called a timeout after two players had slipped and fallen. Then the comedy started. Some of the 5,548 fans opened their umbrellas in the stands. Now, let's just stand back for a second. Two takeaways here. One, there were only 5,548 at the game, so that is a statement in unto itself as to how either awful the conditions were that day or how little the Sonic support was at that time. Then two, for the fans to have umbrellas in the stands would lead one to conclude that it was raining hard enough outside to necessitate said brawlies. The timeout in basketball is a strange creature. No one really exactly knows how long they are because they're never really enforced, especially when television takes control. But I will say this, they are not supposed to exceed 75 seconds even in a TV timeout. But this timeout ended after 55 minutes, and that's when referee Mike Mathis called the game. Yes, the Sonic Sun game in the Coliseum is canceled on account of rain leaking through the arena roof. And it went down as the first time in NBA history that a game had to be called on account of rain when it happened in 1986 on this day in weather history. Never forget that you have a surefire way of staying up on all the edge of your seat action with This Day in Weather History, the podcast. Okay, I don't know about the whole edge of your seat thing, but still, it's a very cool virtual page flip through a calendar of all times, featuring a different weather story wherever you happen to land in time. Just hit the subscribe or follow button right there on whatever podcast provider you're listening to me on right now. Plus, subscribers get full-time access to the archives of all past episodes, and the list just keeps on growing. Very literally every day. We started this journey back on June 1st of 2020, so there is a ton of rapid-fire binge listening that awaits you. Tomorrow is January 7th, and for this one, we go to the Windy City, sweet home Chicago. On this day, 6 tornadoes touched down in the late afternoon, early evening of 1989. The worst of the damage was leveled upon the small town of Allendale, Illinois. Tornadoes in January are not normal, so we will have to investigate how this could have transpired at all. And we will, tomorrow, on this day in weather history, with me, your host, Chris May.